Hi guys, this is me, Daniel Hutchins, and today we're going to be doing an article from our friend Screenman. So today from Screenman, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man. Yep, Spider-Man. So Spider-Man art has imagined Tom Holland's, Garfield, and Maguire's web swingers as zombies. Now, if you guys really like Marvel zombies, let me know in the comment below. So I'm going to be talking more about these fan art depictions of the Spider-Man. So, 3 pieces of Marvel fan art depict Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland versions of Spider-Man as zombies. Now, this was 2 days ago. So, a piece of Spider-Man fan art depicts Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire's Spideys as zombies. While the MCU has released over 20 movies in the last 13 years, Sony launched a successful Spider-Man franchise all the way back in 2002 with the same Raimi trilogy with Maguire. Now, the trilogy ended up being incredibly successful, becoming some of Sony's highest grossing films in the theaters. Now, Mark Webb's movies starring Garfield as the teenage web swinger weren't as successful because it was the reboot of Spider-Man, which caused Sony to reboot it again with Holland and finally let Spider-Man join the MCU, which the MCU didn't even come into place until 2008. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about Spider-Man. So Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home performed pretty well critically and financially. The third Spider-Man film starring Holland is announced years ago, and it's coming out this year around December. And the trailer is not yet here, but the multiverse is all but confirmed for the sequel. With Doctor Strange confirmed to make this appearance, the ending of Loki also seen that the sacred timeline branching after Sylvie killed the He Who Remains, which has only supported the reports that Maguire and Garfield will have Spider-Man cameos in the new Spider-Man movie. Now, related to this article is Spider-Man 3 theory. Tobey Maguire's MCU daughter is Spider-Girl. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about someone else. So, anyway, but the trailer's still not released yet. Fans have gone crazy about what they imagine the next movie for Spider-Man franchise is going to look like. Now, the piece of artwork is from this thing called illusionista.cl. Now, I don't have no idea what it is, but imagines this 3 versions of Peter Parker turning into flesh-eating zombies. Now, each post shows the finished arts as well as the reference image this artist used to create each piece. Okay, so illusionista.cl. Okay, so first we have the first Spider-Man, and it's pretty cool. It's on, so keep in mind guys, these are all on Instagram. So if you go to Instagram, check out illusionista.cl, you can see all 3 of these Spider-Mans on Instagram. But you have the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, then you have, followed by that, you have the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and you have the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Now, keep in mind guys, there are thousands and thousands of likes and reactions to these fan arts on Instagram.com. Now, if you don't have an Instagram, you should probably get an Instagram because a lot of people in entertainment and social media have Instagrams, and that's where they kind of post their art or fan art for movies and teasers and things like that. So, zombies more than likely won't make the appearance in No Way Home, unless Mysterio has conjured up the zombie Iron Man again. But there will be plenty of other threats for Spider-Man to face. There's Dr. Octopus and Electro, both confirmed to be returning in their respective forms, which is the big reason why many think Disney isn't being 100% honest about the Maguire and Garfield cameos. Even with the Green Goblin was rumored to be the main villain in No Way Home. However, Dr. Octopus and Electro in the casting, this has yet to be confirmed. But Marvel Zombies is a popular comic book series, and, in fact, believe it or not, Disney has yet to produce a movie based on the concept of Marvel Zombies. And that being said, the upcoming animated series, Disney Plus, which comes out this month, will feature Captain America, Iron Man, and Hawkeye as zombies. And also you have Holland's Spider-Man as the Sorcerer Supreme and Zombie Hunter. The odds of Disney making a movie dedicated to Marvel Zombies, especially with Holland and Maguire, seems very low. Still though, story-wise, anything's possible now with the sacred timelines fractured. So, now we are going to be doing a bonus. We are going to be doing a bonus, y'all. A bonus. So, all 6 canceled Spider-Man movies and why they did not happen. Okay, so this was from last year. Now, the reason I held up this long was because I knew you guys wanted to be excited for Spider-Man content, so I figured I'd probably share some Spider-Man content. So, in every unmade Spider-Man movie and why they get canceled, now there are a few superheroes more ubiquitous than Spider-Man and their pals these days. Whether it's Tom Holland getting up all manner of teenage shenanigans as Peter Parker in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a 20-something-year-old Peter Parker protecting New York City in the Insomniac Spider-Man video game, and spider-heroes like Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, and even Spider-Ham traversing the multiverse and animated Spider-Verse franchises, to mention nothing of the ongoing Spider-Man comic books and cartoon series. There's more than plenty of Spider-Man entertainment to go around. Okay, so the character's popularity has long been attributed to their working-class roots and relatable nature, unlike other superheroes in the universe. Now, Spider-Man is neither rich nor an extraterrestrial and has to juggle the challenges of being a crime fighter with school, work, family, love. It all kind of follows a pattern. So, we know that, but this grounds the web swinger regardless of who's wearing the mask, in the way that makes them accessible to novices and non-hardcore comic book fans. Yes, I'm speaking to you, y'all, and arguably even more so than equally popular superhero icons like Superman and Batman. Okay, so here we go. 40 years after they were credited by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko for the world of Marvel Comics in 1962, Spider-Man joined the Man of Steel and Cape Crusader on the big screen. He has starred in half a dozen more live-action movies since then, in addition to showing up in MCU crossovers such as the animated Spider-Verse. Yet, as many Spider-Man films are now, there are a significant number that never came to pass. Now there's the canon film Spider-Man. Okay, the first failed attempt to make a live-action Spider-Man began in 1985, when Marvel optioned the rights to now defunct canon films. It came at a strange time for superhero movies like Superman 3, which had only disappointed commercially 2 years prior, and the genre was still 4 years off from 90s renaissance ushered by Tim Burton's Batman. Stranger yet, though, canon execs have said were under the impression Spider-Man was a monster horror property and turned to Leslie Stevens to write a script where Peter Parker becomes basically a giant human tarantula, with the intention of getting Toby Hooper to direct it. Now, unsurprisingly though, Lee vetoed the idea of Spider-Man film that strayed so far from the source material, and Stevens' treatment was abandoned. After that, the project started moving forward with a new script by Ted Newsom and John Brancato, this time in the form of Peter Parker origin story featuring Dr. Octopus as his mentor turned enemy. Joseph Zito was brought in to direct and had his eye on a cast that could have potentially included Bob Hoskins as Dr. Octopus, and then up in the corner Tom Cruise as Peter. In the end, though, things didn't work out. Cannon eventually cut the film's budget in an effort to curb their expenditures, prompting Zito to step down on the project and fall development limbo. It was finally cancelled in late 80s, and at a time when Cannon was coming off expensive misfires of Masters Universe and Superman 4, The Quest of Peace. Now, James Cameron's Spider-Man. Okay. So rather than giving up this idea on a Spider-Man movie, Golan later extended the deal with Marvel in 1992. He tried and failed to get the project going again at Columbia Pictures. A few years later, shortly before he finished production of True Lies, James Cameron submitted his own treatment for a live-action Spider-Man movie, one he'd been working on since the early 80s, the Carol Co. Pictures. Cameron's plan was to put a far more mature as R-rated spin on typical Peter Parker origin story by really playing up the parallels between Peter gaining the spider powers and going through puberty. He also infamously plotted out a scene where Peter seduces Mary Jane by discussing the maiden habits of a spider before the pair commenced to have sex on the Brooklyn Bridge. Related to this article is every unmade James Cameron movie and why they did not happen. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about someone else. So as odd as that might sound, Cameron's film was ultimately undone by outside factors. Legal disagreements between Golan and Carolco held the movie up before Carolco 21st Century Film Corporation, which Golan had taken charge of after resigning from Canada in 1989. Marvel all went bankrupt in 1996, and Cameron moved on to other ventures after signing a deal with 20th Century Fox. Eventually, towards the end of the decade, Columbia and Sony acquired the full Spider-Man movie rights and had recruited Sam Raimi to direct the first of the three extremely lucrative live-action films, starring Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker and Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. Spider-Man 4. Now, there's been some YouTube channels that have talked about Spider-Man 4, and it was supposed to be in development, but we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So, collectively, Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy grossed over $2.5 billion at the box office and earned widespread acclaim for the first two entries, with Spider-Man 3 getting a fair less growing and still decent reception. Needless to say, Spider-Man 4 was put in development shortly after the third movie opened in 2007, with the intention of having Raimi once again direct, and Maguire and Dunn starring. John Malkovich later entered talks to play the Vulture, a villain Raimi had originally wanted to include Spider-Man 3. But in late 2009, with Anne Hathaway lined up to play Felicia Hardy, who becomes the Black Cat in Marvel comic books, it's also believed Spider-Man 4 would have carried over key plots from Raimi's trilogy, including Peter and Mary Jane rebuilding their relationship after the fallout from Spider-Man 3, and Peter's professor, Kurt Connors, gradually transforming into the Wizard. But per the terms of their deal, the Spider-Man rights, Sony needed to be actively developing a new Spider-Man movie every few years, which led them to setting a May 2011 release date for Spider-Man 4. Raimi, who was already disappointed with how Spider-Man 3 was, tried multiple times to crack the story and script for the fourth movie, in time to meet his deadline, before ultimately decided it would be better for him to step down, rather than release another rushed sequel he didn't fully believe in. Sony, as mentioned, had to keep the ball rolling all the same, which is why they didn't decide to reboot why they decided to reboot the franchise instead. Okay. Related to this article is the plot of Sam Raimi's canceled Spider-Man 4, which might be a video I might talk about in the future. I'm not going to be talking about it today, but if you guys want to see it, let me know in the comments. I want to know your thoughts. The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4. Released in 2012, The Amazing Spider-Man once again retold Peter Parker's origin, like it does in the first one, this time with Andrew Garfield playing Peter, Emma Stone co-starring as Gwen Stacy, and Mark Webb, fresh off success in 2009's 500 Days of Summer. Directed, but viewers were not as strong as those of Raimi's first two Spider-Man movies, but The Amazing Spider-Man still drew accolades for its slick 3D cinematography and comparative realistic take on Spider-Man universe. It was also another commercial success that paved way to the sequel later in 2014. However, in between those films and in theaters, Sony was spurred by the success of Avengers to try and expand the franchise in full-blown shared universes. In addition to plotting off spin-offs like Venom. Now, the studio set release dates for both The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4 in 2016 and 2018, well before the second film in the series had even been considered. Okay, so while The Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't a commercial flop, it brought in about $709 million at the box office. It earned less than the predecessor and drew the worst reviews for Spider-Man movies ever. Now, with critics and general audiences taking it a task to be overstuffed, with story threads and characters meant to set up future sequels and spin-offs, among other problems though, so rather than continue the Amazing Spider-Man franchise and risking more diminishing returns on the cash cow, Sony decided to work out the deal with Marvel Studios, and they shared their rights to Spider-Man and officially rebooted Peter Parker again in MCU in 2015, with Holland taking over the role in Captain America Civil War. Sinister Six. Now, prior to Sony striking a deal with Marvel Studios, the former was reported to be working on multiple spin-offs with the part of the Amazing Spider-Man shared universe. The first two was Venom and the Sinister Six. They were announced in December of 2013, with Alex Kurtzman attached to helm Venom and Drew Goddard writing Sinister Six, with an eye on him directing it. Now, Venom was later revived and reimagined as the part by the Sony Pictures Universal Marvel characters, with the sequel coming out this year, Venom Let There Be Carnage, scheduled to open this fall. Now, Sinister Six hasn't been so lucky. Though it's heavily speculated Sony is building up the supervillain crossovers and will take big steps forwards with next year's Morbius movie, which is the vampire we know from the Spider-Man universe and from the Spider-Man 1990s animated series. But again, which is already confirmed to include a cameo with Michael Keaton's Vulture from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's also possible that Goddard could even be brought back into fold, but should this particular Spider-Man spin-off eventually come to a pass? I don't know, that's a good question. But again, that's all your history on what would have been some Spider-Man movies and why they didn't happen. And so if you guys like that content, please let me know in the comments below. And make sure you also let me know what your thoughts were about if you want to see a video on the plot of Sam Raimi's canceled Spider-Man 4. Now, let me know in the comment below. I need to see some communication from you. I need to see some of you fans trying to go out and say, do this, do this, do this. I like to see that. I like to see some people actually saying, pushing me to make videos of content that I know you guys are going to love. Now, okay guys, so I know we're going about 20 minutes in this article discussion. I did a bonus for you, so I'm sure you guys are super happy. And so right now I'm just quietly watching something on my TV on mute because I don't want to break copyright. And I think my dad is outside working on the Toyota, trying to fix some suspensions with my mom's car. And because, it's been through wrecks and stuff. And like I said, if you guys have any comments, leave them down below. Let me know your thoughts if I should do a video on the plot of Sam Raimi cancel Spider-Man 4. And again, I might be doing some more videos throughout the day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.